This year's punting headlines have been dominated by big leg punters. Ariza and Turk taking the main stage, followed by a slew of Australians throwing footballs down the field in their signature style. But for the past 5 years, one man has been silently putting up some of the best numbers, well, ever.
Ryan Stonehouse, Colorado State.
You're looking at the best punter arguably in the country. This is Ryan Stonehouse.
Is an All-American punter. That is 81 yards.
That's just outstanding punting, and they'll make them do it again.
Ryan Stonehouse out of Colorado State. Before I start the journey on Ryan Stonehouse's record-breaking career, first, who is this guy? Ryan Stonehouse first popped up on my radar back in 2016 when sophomore punter Isaac Parks at the time was just learning about Cole's kicking and saw a video of Ryan punting. Two things I'll never forget is his signature underhand grip and that god dang smirk he had on his face after nuking one. I remember watching the film like, dang, this kid is good. But little did I know I was watching the start of something legendary. We then followed his career into his first year at Colorado State, where he was taking over for the punter Hayden Hunt, who had a very solid career by all definitions, finishing his sophomore year as a Ray Guy finalist in 2015 and punting very well ever since. Ryan was stepping into what appeared to be big shoes, but little did we all know they were shoes he would soon outgrow. Well, year one, and Ryan has done very good for any freshman, averaging 45.38 yards per punt and netting 38.2 yards. After that, he averaged an impressive 48.3 yards per punt, but only netted 36. A 46-yard average in 2019, and a 42-yard average during the COVID season later, and here we are a couple weeks away from Stoney breaking multiple records like longest single season average in the history of the NCAA and longest career average in the history of the NCAA. So with records like these in his back pocket, why doesn't he get more hype? Where is ESPN praising this guy and parading him around like one of the best punters of all time? Is there something we're missing? Let's take a further look. Ryan Stonehouse's freshman year was good. 45.38 yards per punt is nothing to wipe your nose at, landing him Mountain West All-Conference honorable mention. Showing fairly good consistency game to game and an ability to blast footballs, this would be a good career year for him, setting the stage. Some other notable freshmen to compare this to was J.K. Scott, who averaged 44.2 yards per punt, and this year, Ryan Reckow, who averaged 45.14 yards per punt as a true freshman. But to put in perspective how rare this is, if you take a look at just this year's punter, you have to scroll all the way down to the 32nd highest ranked average before you'll find a freshman punter, and then all the way down to 46 before you'll find a freshman punter who isn't old enough to have his own family back home. Not having a freshman average 45 or more yards is a pretty normal thing, so when it does happen, you should definitely pay attention. But we all just didn't. This is the year that Michael Dixon won the Ray Guy Award and honestly showed next level control over the football, and if you ask me, he really locked in the Australian craze that we're seeing today after winning the MVP of the 2017 Texas Bowl. So American guys like Stonehouse, who weren't the top two in the nation, flew a little under the radar. The next year, Stoney came back better than ever in a huge season, averaging over 48 yards per punt. But little did everyone know that this would also begin an era of breaking records for older guys, because in the 2018 season, there was a man who was doing what had never been done before. Braden Mann. He was having a monstrous season, averaging over 50 yards per punt, and was looking like a shoo-in Ray Guy Award winner. And that he was, while leading a close race, knocking off two Aussies, who were, in the meantime, having excellent seasons of their own, notably Mitch Wachowski, which any 49er fan is probably familiar with, as being quite the punter himself. All this means is that while Stonehouse was having an excellent season, especially as a sophomore, it's just more sitting back slightly under the radar once again. This season is also time that we start to point out something that will plague Stonehouse's career. While he was putting up huge numbers in 2018, his coverage unit was not getting it done, hindering Stoney's net punt average down to 36 yards per punt. This would begin the rhetoric around Stonehouse that somehow he is at fault for his coverage unit's poor efforts. 2019 would be him doing what he can to help out this problem as he brings his own average down to around 46 yards per punt, but meantime forces the same number of fair catches and 49 punts that he did the previous year in 60 plus punts. This brings his net average back up to 42 yards per punt, but what's keeping him from recognition now? Max Duffy is popping off at Kentucky and all eyes are back on the Aussies. And this isn't a bad thing per se for all punters because Duffy was having a phenomenal season, so he was rightfully being credited with the work he was putting in. It just means that one more year for Stonehouse to be overlooked. The COVID season didn't do Stonehouse any favors as the Rams only played 4 games, but Ryan put up a modest 45-yard average again, but all in the shadow of guys that got to play full seasons. That would mark the lowest net average in Stoney's career and continue the rhetoric that has plagued his phenomenal career. Finally, we get to 2021, and Stonehouse is entering his last season of play, ready to put a cherry on top of the career he's had, and by God, he's doing it. 70% of his games this season, he's averaged 50 or more yards per punt. Game after game, highlight after highlight, he keeps layering icing on this cake. So bring out the parade. No? For fuck's sake, what is it this time? Like years past, when Stoney has had a great year, by God, someone has had a better one. I mentioned that he was about to break the record for the longest punt average in a single season, which is true, but would you guess it? The year Stoney does this, someone is poised to break it even harder. Now, I won't speak that much further on Ariza's season because I don't want to take away from the spotlight being pointed on Stonehouse, but at this point, it's just downright not fair. Every spotlight that should be going to a fitting Ryan Stonehouse is instead pointed at a punter out of San Diego State, and for good reason. A better average, a better net. Stonehouse has hit an 80-yard punt this season, and Matt has hit 2. There's just no winning. At the very least, if you're just a random football enjoyer, you're going to see Matt as a superior punter this year. While I might listen to some arguments for why this might be the case, personally, I still have to give my vote to Stonehouse. As far as I'm concerned, Stonehouse is just a more polished version than Matt. He gets slightly better hang times. He's shown more consistent direction and control of the ball. His Aussie-style punts is just a little bit cleaner. And all of these things honestly should be true. Stonehouse has been doing this for his 5th year in college, while Matt's first real year punting at the collegiate level is this year. But this is just another year that Ryan will fly under the radar, which is the first reason I'll say that he's consistently snubbed.
There's always a bigger fish.
There's always a bigger fish. Stonehouse's career has been defined by the always a bigger fish meme. Everything good that Ryan seems to do, there's always someone who seems to get it done just a bit better that particular season. But ironically, it's never the same guy. In 2020, no one knew about Matt Ariza. In 2019, Presley Harvin was having his struggles. 2018, Max Duffy was still getting his footing in the US, and in 2017, Braden Mann wasn't anything too special. All these guys before Stonehouse seemed to be one-hit wonder punters, consistently just pushing him out of the spotlight. But another reason that he's not made it into many conversation is his net average that I said we'd be getting back to. Now, before I look too deeply into his net average, let's talk about what a net average is. Essentially, the net punt is where the ball ends up at the end of the play. This includes touchbacks and penalties, but mostly what people use it as a metric as is how good of coverage is the coverage unit doing. And while some people may say Ryan outkicks his coverage, I say his coverage has just notoriously been bad. For instance, we're just going to watch this one punt against Iowa. Ryan Stonehouse does his typical rollout style punt to give his coverage unit a little bit more time, then blasts a beautiful 56-yard punt down the field outside the numbers. So all in all, from snap to catch, his unit has 6 full seconds to get down the field and corral this guy for at least a short gain. But when we watch it, as he's catching it, guys are still being blocked. The left side of the field just hasn't shown up, and people are over leveraged on the returner, giving him plenty of rooms to bounce it back and flip the field across the 50-yard line. Ryan's tape is plagued with punts like these. Great direction, good enough hang, but his unit just doesn't show up. And the thing about bad net averages is teams smell it like blood in the water. Once they see that your guys don't give great effort, they're going to block them into the dirt every play, making your job as a punter impossible. While you can carry them on some punts, you just can't carry them always. But regardless, people are going to use this as a metric to discredit Ryan Stonehouse's career. All that being said, Ryan has had the best college career probably of all time, and more people need to be talking about it. Ryan, if you're watching this, thank you for balling out every week and giving me something to look forward to on Saturdays. You will always be a legend of punters everywhere. As always, guys, I hope you're having a great day. If you agree with what I said, leave a comment down below telling me that Ryan Stonehouse is the best to ever do it. If you think there's been another punter who's had a better all-around career than Stonehouse, then also leave that in the comments and we'll talk about it. But as always, guys, have a great day. Peace.
Colorado State really needs Ryan Stonehouse to get into one here. And he does just that. Look at that kick. My goodness, big roll all the way down to the 10. It's picked up there by Johnson, and he's captured immediately. That is an All-American punter. That is 81 yards.